Nichols. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Katie Nichols. I'm a project manager with the State Coastal Conservancy. And today we're going to be talking about the Southern California Wetlands Recovery Project, or WRP, and our work plan. We have a couple WRP other members joining us today, and then my colleague and co-presenter, Megan.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Martinez. I am the current NOAA Coastal Management Fellow at the State Coastal Conservancy, and I am supporting the efforts of the Wetlands Recovery Project.
We just want to let folks know that we are recording this webinar and we will post it to our WRP Databasin website. So just that folks are aware we are recording. To start off, we're going to see who's involved and do a quick poll to see how much folks know about the WRP. So if you can see that poll and go ahead and participate, we'll just get a gauge of how many folks kind of already know about the WRP and our work plan. Awesome. So it looks like a couple folks may be aware of the project and the WRP, but a lot of folks new. So this will be a good overview. So today we're going to talk about an overview of what the Wetlands Recovery Project is. I'm going to cover a description of the work plan, some example projects, benefits of being on the work plan, and then how we evaluate projects that apply. And then Megan is going to go into our web platform Databasin and get into some of the technical tools of how to apply by goal and go into the actual online system and show folks how to use the tools we have online. So a little bit of background about the Wetlands Recovery Project, or WRP. It's a partnership of 18 state and federal agencies, chaired by the California Natural Resources Agency and supported by the California State Coastal Conservancy. And the mission of the WRP is to expand, restore, and protect wetlands in Southern California's coastal watersheds. It was created in 1997, and the goal was for the WRP to be a regional voice for the valuable coastal wetland resources in Southern California. We're trying to achieve that through partnerships between public agencies, scientists, and communities working cooperatively to support and facilitate wetland acquisition, enhancement, and restoration. The graphic you see there is kind of the makeup or structure of the WRP and the various groups and how to engage. So we'll get into a little bit of that in the presentation. Our regional extent, so the geographic extent goes from Point Conception, just north of the Santa Barbara subregion, all the way down to the US-Mexico border. On this map, in the red dots, we're showing coastal wetlands, and the blue dots are non-tidal wetlands. And this is just showing a network of how all of our different wetland systems are kind of connected around Southern California. So the work plan of the WRP is a list of high priority preservation, acquisition, restoration, and enhancement projects for wetlands and streams in the coastal watersheds of Southern California. And the goal is for the work plan projects to be consistent with our regional strategy. So the work plan is typically populated by a few dozen projects, and over the years there have been many new projects added. And so you have a proposal ultimately selected as part of this RFP process. It will join the list of projects on our work plan. In 2018, we developed a regional strategy to describe our long-term goals and implementation strategies to help guide wetland restoration for the WRP over the next few decades. and figure out what our goals were to improve wetland resilience to climate change and other stressors. Through this regional strategy document, we have developed quantitative objectives that we can use to track our progress and success over time. This reference document, the regional strategy, is available online. And a lot of the terminology, goals, and objectives that we're talking about for the work plan and the WRP are pulled directly from this regional strategy document. So the work plan identifies projects for all 4 of the regional strategy's goals. So you can see the 4 goals here on the slide. Now for today, this work plan RFP, we're soliciting projects for the first 2 of the 4 goals. So projects that restore tidal wetlands and non-tidal wetlands. So goal 1 and goal 2. We're not currently soliciting projects under goals 3 and 4, although I do want to highlight that many of the projects that apply for the work plan under these other 2 goals may have components involving education and access or research, and that's great. That wouldn't preclude your project from applying to one of those first 2 goals. I also want to highlight that we have a current grant opportunity for community-based restoration to support goal 3. So we recently did a webinar on that, and I'll talk a little bit about that grant program, but there's a bunch of materials and a recorded webinar specific to that grant program also online. This is a project map. So this can be found on our website that Megan just put in the chat. This is all of our work plan projects are kind of on the website. You can see a list of completed and current work plan projects. The green flags on this map highlight current project locations, which you can see really cover the extent of the South Coast region. So on our website, squirp.org, there's a couple of different ways that you can look at what projects are online. So one is through our project board, and this allows you to search and kind of sort for projects. You can view the types of projects that are existing, and this might help you to think about how your proposal might fit into existing projects, find other contacts, look at past projects that have been completed. You can also look at the work plan by year and get a table. So if you go under the top menu bar and go to work plan, you can pull out a report by year. And this is what a example report from 2021 projects would look like. So this gives you a high-level overview of where the project is, what county it's in, and what type of project. So we've kind of covered the overview of the WRP and what the work plan is. So you might be wondering, why would I want to apply and what are the benefits? So work plan project proponents have the following benefits and services. So number 1 is you can receive input from all of the WRP agencies. So that includes multiple state, federal funding and regulatory agencies that can provide input on project design, tasks, budget, for example. We're also providing permit pre-application coordination meetings where permitting agencies can all be in the room. So project proponents can ask questions, provide insight, and get assistance prior to applying for permits. The WRP will also provide technical assistance in identifying grant opportunities and coordination with appropriate agencies. So often as Coastal Conservancy members, we'll get asked questions about projects that may fit a certain funding mechanism, and we can connect those to work plan projects, as well as the other WRP agencies can do so as well. Acceptance to the work plan also may result in the project being more competitive for certain agency funding. But it is important to note that being approved and added to the work plan does not guarantee permits or funding. But it does agree that the work plan agencies agree that it's a priority project. So the process for this request for proposals is proposals will be submitted for the work plan, reviewed by our wetland managers group, which is comprised of staff from the different member agencies. Projects are reviewed on the scorecards and guiding principles, which I'm going to show you guys a little bit about those. After submission, we might follow up with project applicants to get a little bit more information or clarification. And then after that wetland managers group review, we will submit the recommended managers group recommendations to our directors group at an annual meeting. And then those projects will be selected for the work plan for the year. So eligible applicants are government agencies, so federal, state, local, nonprofits, tribes, and universities. Eligible types of projects are acquisition, restoration, enhancement, planning or implementation also can be eligible. Acquisition projects do need to have a willing seller though. And then the goal is for these to be consistent with our regional strategy goals and objectives. So here's the timeline. Applications are due June 1st. We're going to review those over June and July. The Wetland Managers Group will meet in August and provide recommendations then to the Directors Group. So these projects that are selected will probably be finalized in early fall 2022. And we also do accept applications out of cycle from this current RFP, so that's something to note as well. For budgets, we do not have any limits to the work plan budgets for projects because this isn't a direct funding program, and there aren't any requirements for matching funds. However, it's important that project costs are consistent with the needs and that significant matching funds or services do improve a project's likelihood of being added to the work plan. For projects that are $100,000 or less, those might be a good candidate for a community wetlands grant program. And as I mentioned, there's a current RFP out, and this program really funds small community-based projects. So for proposal evaluation, we have kind of two ways that we evaluate proposals: through scorecards and our guiding principles. So I just wanted to give you an example of what the scorecards look like. So this is an example for a Goal 1 project. So questions on the scorecard include things like, how much area does the project restore? Does the project restore a historical wetland archetype? Does the project expand habitat diversity? These scorecards are available on the SCORP Data Basin website and in the application process itself. So you'll be able to see how the work plan proposals are evaluated. So in addition to the scorecards, we also use our guiding principles. So the guiding principles convey key restoration priorities and approaches of the WRP and give us guidance on individual project development and reviews. So there's a total of 17 of them. I'm not expecting you to read and memorize all of these right now, but these are treated as additional project selection criteria, and they're ranked by 1 point each. So these are found on our website in the regional strategy, and they're also linked in the application. So you can see directly how proposals are evaluated using these scorecards and the guiding principles. So I've mentioned our website several times. It has an abundance of additional information, as well as linked to our map website. And Megan next is going to go through how you actually apply and where to navigate. But we're going to pause here for any questions about the WRP in general, and the work plan. And I think I didn't mention this in the beginning, but you can always input questions into the chat. Now is a good time for questions. We can unmute you. And we also should have time at the end for questions as well. I will also say that folks can use the raise their hand feature. So one question in the chat is, what amount of acreage is considered small for restoration? I would say that's a really project specific question. So size and wetland area is kind of one component of the scorecard. So I went back to the scorecard here. So if your project, even though it might be small in size, if it increases habitat diversity, provides additional new previously diminished wetland species or habitat, even if it's small, it still might be a good candidate for the work plan. But you also might consider, if it's a smaller project in scale and size, the community wetland program that we touched on too. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Megan, if you want to keep going, we can see if there's more questions at the end.
Yeah, happy to continue on. All right, hi everyone. The second portion of this webinar will be largely focused on the WRP resources and tools, and as well as application processes for both goals 1 and 2 of the regional 2018 regional strategy. So in this portion of the webinar, we will give an introduction to DataBasin and Mapped, explore SQRP data layers, give an overview of how to apply for the goal 2 in the application, as well as how to apply for goal 1 using the Marsh Adaptation Planning Tool, or Mapped for short, and go through a quick demo on how to do that. So the first, we're going to introduce DataBasin. DataBasin is essentially the technology to include both data and tools that powers the Marsh Adaptation Planning Tool application in the background. So DataBasin is a science-based mapping and data sharing platform that supports environmental research, education, as well as conservation. And there are thousands of data sets available from a wide array of organizations available on the web platform. And the link is located at the bottom, databasin.org. So in terms of the DataBasin functions, DataBasin enables you to search and download maps and data sets, to create, manage, and share maps, data, and documents in galleries, as well as create your own group. There are no login, there's no login is necessary to browse public content, but it does allow you to create a free account and also save your own work. Thanks for keeping up, Katie. Sorry about all the animations. So the Mapped was developed by a nonprofit called Conservation Biology Institute. The homepage gives you access to multiple resources and also hosts the Regional Strategy 2018, as well as its appendices. It can provide access to data layers that were used to create the Regional Strategy 2018 objectives. Also assists with applying for the work plan. And highlighted in that red box is going to be the regional strategies major sections, which are presented with the maps and data that supported their development. Next, we're going to explore some WRP data layers, a few of which will be used in the mapped application, or may be useful when deciding on your project location and or design. So starting at the mapped homepage, if you were to click on the map in the lower right-hand corner, you would launch what is called the Quick Start map. Next, I will walk you through some of the WRP layers that are specifically related to Goal 1, which again is tidal wetlands, and Goal 2, non-tidal wetlands. So to orient you, this map is showing Goleta Slough in the Santa Barbara subregion of the WRP. I have selected the sub-boundaries layer as shown in yellow, as well as the WRP historical habitats that show unvegetated flats in brown, vegetated marsh in green, and subtidal habitat in dark blue. The next is going to be the contemporary wetlands layer. This map is showing the estuarine unvegetated as well as vegetated wetland and subtidal water for contemporary wetlands as of 2019. The next layer is the transition zone layer, which yellow is going to be representing the present transition zone and green is representing the future potential transition zone. This particular layer may be useful if you plan to include transition zone habitat in your project area or to determine whether there is the potential to do so. The development layer or develop layer includes all urban areas within a 1.5 meter of sea level rise footprint scenario around each wetland system. So residential and industrial areas, airports and military bases, large transportation corridors, for example, Highway 1, and open spaces that are fully surrounded by or part of the urban matrix are also included in this layer. And you can even, in addition to the existing WRP layers that you can select through, you can also search and add other database map layers to this quick mapped website. So this layer was an added data set produced by the San Francisco Estuary Institute, and this is an example of where eelgrass can be found in the Seal Beach National Wildlife Refuge, in pink. Moving on to goal 2, non-tidal wetlands. This layer is going to be the riverine transition zones as shown in orange. And it is a data set that was created to highlight the connections between riverine and estuarine wetland systems, as well as transition zones. So fish passage may be an area of interest for your particular project. For example, if you were to search for the term fish passage, you could add this as another separate data set to the map tool, and you would find a CDFW fish passage assessment database that was modified for the WRP's interest, specifically in Southern California. So this data was also modified to include only partial and total fish barriers. So this particular habitat is going to be located near the Trabuco Canyon and is an example of how you can search for specific databases that suit your project. All right, from the mapped homepage, there are multiple ways to access information about applying to the work plan. So the first is going to be the how to apply webpage button that's selected at the top. It has more information about the work plan and how to apply for either goal 1 or goal 2. So first, we are going to start off with goal 2 because at this time it is a much simpler application process and we can get through it a little bit quicker. So here on the screen, we are now showing the goal 2 non-tidal wetlands page, and the application itself can simply be downloaded from this page, and you can begin filling out the application located where you see the red arrow. Each proposal should include the application itself, a regional map indicating the project area, a map of the project site, and 1 to 3 labeled photos of the project site condition as shown on right in the bulleted list. The complete proposal package should be emailed to Katie Nichols. So that's the really quick overview of goal 2 application. Going forward, the remainder of the presentation will be a demonstration on how to use the March Adaptation Planning tool, specifically for goal 1 tidal wetland projects. So just wanted to give that everyone a heads up before we continue on the remainder of the presentation. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to create an account for Databasin. Once you have gone through that process, you will want to go to the Get Started tab and then select Start a Project. Next, you will want to make sure you are signed into your account before beginning the mapped application. Once you do so, you will have the ability to save your progress for your application by clicking the Save button at the bottom of the page. In case you don't get all the way through, it can be accessed. Your application can be viewed by selecting the Marsh Adaptation Planning Tool sign or text at the top of the screen. Just wanted to throw in a caveat. In a few weeks, a new button will be added to the website to make it easier to view your applications. But for now, you would just click the Marsh Adaptation Planning Tool text at the top. So in terms of viewing your save files, it looks like it will look like this once you have saved the application, and you can always access it after the fact. So, but now you are ready to begin, and I will walk you through how to apply. So to orient you, I want to start off at a regional scale and point out that there are two tabs located at the top. There is the Define Project tab where you will be filling out your application. And to the right of that is the Map Layers tab, which will give you access to activate multiple planning layers at a given time. The subregional boundary layer will show you how the WRP is broken down into 5 subregions to include the Santa Barbara, Ventura, Santa Monica, San Pedro, and San Diego subregions. So now we are going to zoom in to our wetland system, which will be the Sweetwater Marsh in the San Diego subregion. Here you will notice that the wetland system boundaries layer is activated on the left, and there are multiple wetland systems adjacent to each other. We have the Sweetwater Marsh in orange, the San Diego Bay in green, and further south, which is not highlighted here, is going to be the Otay River estuary. Zooming in further to our project area, we are going to be switched back to the Define Project tab and begin the application by first typing in the name of our project, which is going to be the Sweetwater Marsh Restoration. The second step is to define the project area, and this is the most critical part of the application. I recommend clicking the yellow information button. This is going to be located right next to every single question and is available for extra context. This will provide instructions for uploading your shape files or drawing your polygons manually. So please familiarize yourself with these instructions before attempting to do the application, as it will make the application process much simpler. So if you do choose to upload shape files, I do want to note that simple polygons are the best. However, if you decide to draw polygons, it is okay to estimate the project areas. So for this demo, the hypothetical project site will be in the Sweetwater Marsh in the San Diego subregion, and I am drawing multiple polygons to represent different habitat types. Once I have drawn the project area habitat boundaries, I will need to define the target habitat types. The information button, again, just wanted to show, provides a description of the habitat type so you can adequately identify which habitats you are discussing, because these habitat types are specific to the regional strategy, and we want to make sure that it is there's consistent understanding of what you might call a habitat versus what the regional strategy identifies as a specific habitat type. So going back to our drawing, so if you'll see on the left under define target habitat types for number 3, there are a total of 4 polygons. Polygon A, I identified as salt marsh habitat, but as defined by the regional strategy, we would select vegetated marsh. For polygon B, I defined as mudflats, and that is defined by the regional strategy as unvegetated flats. Polygon C, I identified as eelgrass, and in the regional strategy, that is subtidal. And then polygon D is going to be transition zone, which equates to the same for both definitions. So now that the polygons are drawn, you can continue on to question number 4. So the regional strategy developed wetland categories called archetypes. And if you click on the information button, it will describe the different character archetypes and how they function along with a conceptual model. So the tool will automatically state the present archetypes. In this case, it is the intermediate estuary. And hypothetically, we do not plan to alter the present archetype, so we can go ahead and select intermediate estuary because it will remain the same. I also want to caveat and say that most projects will not be changing an archetype. The only instances where this could be the case is if you are doing a large system-wide project that is changing the hydrology of the entire system. Next, we'll move on to fragments. So this question is assessing whether the project area will hydrologically reconnect currently fragmented wetland systems. First, you will need to activate the wetland system boundaries layer. by either selecting the icon below the question or activating it under the Map Layers tab, as I showed earlier. Again, the tool will automatically state where the project area has any fragments. And in this case, there are a total of 3 fragments adjacent in the system. And that includes the Otay River estuary to the south, the San Diego Bay, as well as Sweetwater Marsh. So in this particular example, our project area does not overlap San Diego Bay. So we are not hydrologically reconnecting currently fragmented wetland systems, and we would select no for the question. So in the case where your project does hydrologically reconnect fragmented wetland systems, you would select either yes or partially and provide further explanation or supporting information in the project narrative, which we will show later. Before you move on to any other questions, you're always welcome to turn on and off any boundaries so they're not conflicting with any others going forward. So number 6 is going to be transition zones and sea level rise. So number 6 is asking specifically whether or not the project is incorporating wetland migration area. First, you'll want to activate the transition zone layer and the sea level rise layer. So our project area does focus on transition zone habitat, as we showed in polygon D, I think it was, yes, polygon D. And we will select yes for this question. Regarding the sea level rise layer, the 24 inches of sea level rise layer is using NOAA's data. So while this layer doesn't inform you whether marsh migration can be achieved with this project, it can be useful to know whether a wetland will be inundated with 24 inches of sea level rise, and there is transition zone to provide area for marsh migration. The last is going to be hydrological connectivity. So the information button will provide an explanation of the rationale behind these 3 objectives in the regional strategy, and there are a total of 3 questions. The first is, does the project restore tidal characteristics? In this example, we are not doing anything hydrologically to restore tidal characteristics, so we would say no. The second one will be, does project restoration hydrological connection and sediment supply from the watershed? In this instance, we would say no. And does project manage water and sediment to accommodate 24 inches of sea level rise? We would select no as well for this last one. So once you are finished answering these 3 questions, you would select at the very bottom, review results. The results will list on how the project is aligning with the regional strategy goal 1 objectives. And we would click download at the top, click download the application, which downloads a zip file that contains 3 different files. Thank you. And so the downloaded zip file will have a total of 3 documents. The first one is a README file, which reiterates the instructions provided on the website. The second is the RFP application itself, and then the summary of objectives. The Word document application, which will be partially filled in by the tool, as you can see in the blue text on the right, but you will be required to fill in the remaining questions in the proposal summary and the proposal narrative. So just be mindful that there are some gaps in between that some of the auto-populated text, and just to make sure that your application is complete before submission. And the last document is a summary of objectives PDF, and this will go through all of the goal 1 objectives, just kind of as I did with you earlier, and how the project relates to the objectives based on the geospatial data that you provided. The numbers in this output are regional numbers that will be used to track the progress on the objectives. However, you will need to utilize the PDF to support your responses to questions in the Word document application. So be mindful that this document will be referenced as you're filling out your application. So just to reiterate, you will need the following for a complete proposal. The first will be your marsh adaptation planning tool output, which will include the application of the Word document, the summary of objectives, which is a PDF attachment that was included in the downloaded zip file. And then also you will need to include regional maps as well as project photos. And your complete proposal package should be emailed to Katie Nichols by 5 p.m. on June 1st. So the context for the work plan will be both myself and Katie Nichols, and our information is located at the bottom. And last but not least, we wanted to bring you all in and ask if there are any remaining questions about how to apply, about any of the tools that are being used for either application or through DataBasin, and just open up, give you all the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. Oh, and with that, I'd also like to take a second to introduce Gladwin Joseph, who works for the Conservation Biology Institute, and he will be here to answer any really specific technical questions regarding DataBasin, for example. And then we also have John Crocker on the line for the Wildlife Conservation Board. So there are a few other WRP members available for questions if necessary. Okay, looks like we have, I can go ahead and see one already. Just to clarify, landscape architecture and planning firms are not eligible to apply. I'm assuming, yeah, that in this case, that if you're not a nonprofit or a agency, then you would not be eligible to apply alone, but you could perhaps potentially partner with one of the eligible applicants that we listed on our screen earlier. All right, a new question popped up. So the only thing we need to upload is the shapefiles for adaptation planning tool. The tool has all other information. We just need to define the habitat types. So yes, if you were going to go the route of uploading your shapefiles, you would just need to follow those instructions on how to upload the files, and then go through the process of cross-matching your attributes, which would be your habitat information with, and matching it, as you said, to define the habitat types. And then the rest you could use to answer your information as you go side by side for each question with the available layers. I also want to mention that if you would like to raise your hand and speak, oops, I think I just did that myself. If you would like to raise your hand and speak, and instead of typing out a question, please feel free to do so.
There's one more question about the map and downloading it. I don't know if you can see it, Megan, but it says, if the application has already been downloaded and saved on a local computer, can it be uploaded to Mapped before an online account is created?
No, we do not have the capability to upload mapped applications or essentially those are going to be PDF or Word documents. So the actual geospatial files are not going to be downloaded. So I would highly recommend first creating an account and saving your application if you're going to be doing this in more than one sitting, for example. That way you're not losing your work or downloading the application before it is completed. I also want to say that if there are any specific technical questions or you would like technical assistance walking through the application, I am more than happy to walk you through or set up a time where we can walk through and apply together if that is necessary, or if there are any specific questions or you get stumped on something specific through the application process. We are here for technical help. So, and if it's something we really can't figure out, we do have the Conservation Biology Institute that can help troubleshoot. So just want to make sure you are aware that that is an option as well.
Are there any other questions about the WRP or the work plan in general? Does anyone want to answer or ask a question directly? You can feel free to raise your hand. Well, I think some of the technical questions might come up as you're going through the tool. So if questions do pop up about your project, the location, or how to use Mapped, feel free to email Megan or myself. I'll just flash our contact info again there. Give it another minute to see if anybody has any questions, but this presentation will be recorded and posted on that SQUIRP database and website. So if you want to go back and review the tools, but there are a lot of tools kind of within the tool, those yellow buttons that Megan mentioned that kind of provide information about each question as well.